There's a lot of Marvel movies. If you're in the top 5, you're doing.
Now, this isn't one of the greatest Marvel movies to me.
Whether they like it or not, they're never gonna.
Or is that Marvel and Disney, they are doing something very similar with the Fantastic Four, much like what they are doing right now with Ironheart, what they did with Snow White, as well as what they did with the Acolyte series back in June of 2024. And, well, a lot of this has to do with the financial cutbacks and the financial collapse surrounding the Fantastic Four first steps.
So these are 6 woke points that are all in this movie, which makes this movie fully woke. It's not just like one thing. They were like, yeah, they did this, but no, it's fully there.
5th, and ahead of its release date, they've been actually going into a lot of problems between both Marvel Studios and the Walt Disney Company, between the test screenings labeled as lackluster, and the reshoots labeled as problematic. There's been a lot of pushback going against this film as well. There's a lot of Marvel fans that aren't quite fond of the fact that they are using Shala Bal, the female Silver Surfer.
So, the question is, can a movie be woke and good? The majority of the time, no. The majority of the time, everything woke turns to shit. So, we'll see.
And shoehorning it into the press tour for Fantastic Four. However, with the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios still struggling over the Fantastic Four test screening failures, along with the problematic reshoots, Pedro is only making matters worse the more times he fires back at the critics and fans. A lot of pushback going against this film as well. There's a lot of Marvel fans that aren't quite fond of the fact that they are using Shala Bal, the female Silver Surfer played by Julia Garner, well above the character of Norrin Radd. And that's just one thing. We also know that Pedro Pascal and his politics are not helping, and it's only getting worse from this point. With Pedro Pascal making some of the worst decisions during the press tour for Fantastic Four, one major development going on now involves how he yet again attacked fans and said some of the most offensive things yet toward Marvel fans that is already creating a division ahead of the release on July 25th. Pedro delivered the following that are just really beginning to actually have a lot of Marvel fatigue and Pedro Pascal fatigue. That is very much real. And like I said earlier, his politics, his overall view on activism, it is not helping at all in the least when it comes down to Marvel and Disney. And the fact that Marvel and Disney allows him to go on that train wreck of viewing, of course, or spewing his politics into the public eye, it goes to show you that they really don't care at all. However, with the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios still struggling over the Fantastic Four test screening failures, along with the problematic reshoots, Pedro is only making matters worse the more times he fires back at the critics and fans. Now, Pedro recently delivered the following in a very defensive way that made things worse. I would definitely say that I'm a proud male feminist, activist, and one that defends LGBTQ rights, and most certainly diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you know, like all of those important things that belong to stay in this industry.
Okay, here's the latest update. And yeah, it's getting weirder. So we've been covering this for a while. Pedro Pascal, Fantastic Four, the emotional press tour, the MAGA comments, the crying on camera, all of it. But now things have shifted again. Because suddenly, it's not just Marvel fans who are reacting, even industry insiders are speaking out, and they're not happy. The numbers? Still decent. Fantastic Four hit over 250 million globally, and Disney's hoping it crosses $500 million by the end of the month. But here's the thing, no one's talking about the actual movie. Instead, all eyes are on Pascal's breakdowns, the crying, the Trump rants, the personal political speeches during what's supposed to be a superhero press tour. It's giving Rachel Zegler 2.0. Same playbook, same outrage, same backlash. But now, there's another layer, because people online are pointing out something else. A possible coordinated smear campaign aimed at Pedro. Weirdly edited clips, out-of-context headlines, even bot activity. All targeting his interviews, turning empathy into ammo. And the response? Completely divided. One side's saying he's being brave, the other side's calling him unwatchable. And meanwhile, Marvel's stuck in the middle of another PR disaster. A reboot meant to revive Phase 6 is now struggling to survive its own press tour. So what exactly is going on? Is this a real emotional breakdown, or is Pedro Pascal being set up? Let's get into the full story. So here's what's wild. On paper, this movie had everything going for it. Marvel's been desperate for a win. After the Marvels crashed and burned, and Blade got stuck in development limbo, they needed something big to reset the brand. And Fantastic Four. First Steps was supposed to be exactly that, a nostalgic reboot. Big cast, big budget, a new start for Phase 6, and honestly, the opening numbers were promising. The film debuted with $117 million domestically, and globally, it hit $257 million in just one weekend. That's Marvel's first $100 million opening of 2025. On the surface, that screams success, but then the second weekend hit, and just like that, the bottom dropped out. We're talking a 66% drop in ticket sales.
The Fantastic Four are going to be a massive fixture for the next several upcoming years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Reed Richards specifically, supposedly, is going to be a huge part of what Marvel does going forward. And of course, he's played by Pedro Pascal. We've seen Marvel go all in when it comes to the marketing for this, for everything. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of seeing Pedro Pascal anywhere.
That's nearly the same collapse we saw with Quantumania. Another movie that opened big, then evaporated after week 1. And fans are starting to notice the pattern. The hype comes fast, but the excitement doesn't stick. And that brings us back to Pedro Pascal. Because unlike past Marvel projects where the backlash came after release, this one started before the movie even dropped. Weeks before Fantastic Four hit theaters, Pascal was already trending. For all the wrong reasons. Not because of the performance, not because of the plot, but because of what he was saying in interviews, crying on camera, talking about political trauma, blaming specific voter groups for box office numbers. It was everything except what fans came to hear about. And right in the middle of Marvel's comeback attempt, Pedro went totally off script. But that wasn't the end of it. Because the deeper we go into this press tour, the more it feels like Pedro Pascal is becoming the main plotline. Not Mr. Fantastic, not the Silver Surfer, not even the multiverse. And what happened next took things to a whole new level. It started with just one interview. One slightly awkward moment where Pedro Pascal got emotional while talking about what the role meant to him. And hey, no one faulted him for it at first. He spoke about representation, diversity, and how much pressure he felt stepping into an iconic role like Mr. Fantastic. It was raw, it was vulnerable, and it looked like an honest moment. But then it kept happening. Interview after interview, Pedro was breaking down, visibly tearing up, talking about his anxiety, the weight of expectations, and how hard it is navigating Hollywood as someone from a marginalized background. And again, that in itself isn't the issue, but the tone started to shift, because these weren't just emotional reflections anymore, they were becoming full-blown political monologues. He called himself a proud male feminist and activist. He talked about cinema dying under President Trump and claimed the industry was losing its soul under oppressive politics. And all of this happening during press stops for a superhero film that's supposed to be big, fun, and escapist. Fans didn't know what to do with it. You had people on one side saying he was brave for opening up, but others were uncomfortable. They weren't expecting this level of political heaviness during a promo for what's essentially supposed to be Marvel's next popcorn blockbuster. It felt like he was using the platform to shift the narrative, and that made things messy, especially when he started blaming certain political groups for the movie's performance. That's when the backlash really began to snowball. And the weirdest part? Marvel didn't step in, at least not publicly. The studio let it play out, but behind the scenes, that's where things started to crack, because while Pedro kept talking, Marvel was scrambling, and what leaked next made it clear that even Disney was starting to panic. This is where everything really shifted.
This is on the cover of Vanity Fair. Everyone wants a piece of Pedro. Weird like this, by the way. This is for Vanity Fair. You got women's hands on him. You got big black man hands on him here.
What the? Is that's not an AI thing? That's real?
This is from Vanity Fair. This is real. But
The freak?
no.
That's gay. Sorry. Am I allowed to say that?
During what was supposed to be a light press stop, something fun, something Marvel branded, Pedro Pascal decided to take it somewhere no one expected. In front of a live audience, cameras rolling, he launched into a full political tirade. Not vague, not subtle. He called out Trump by name, and not just once. He literally said, if you can even call him a president, then added that under Trump, cinema is dying, free speech is dying, PBS is dying. He even described Trump as a dictator, saying the only reason Fantastic Four wasn't pulling higher numbers was because MAGA supporters were boycotting the film. Direct quote, They have a vendetta against Hollywood, and it's so childish, man. You could hear the room fall into dead silence because it wasn't just a quick comment. This was a full-on emotional speech. Pascal was crying, saying that thinking about America under Trump makes him choke up, that he cries all the time about the state of the country. And look, whatever your views are politically, it felt like a massive overstep, not because he expressed emotion, but because he completely hijacked the press tour of one of Marvel's biggest releases. And the timing? Couldn't have been worse. The film had just opened in theaters. The buzz was still hot. But now, nobody was talking about box office numbers or the visual effects or even the new direction for Reed Richards. They were all talking about Pedro Pascal and his politics. That one clip? It went viral instantly, and online, it was chaos. You had hashtags popping up like that or Pascal unhinged and Bastide cancel Fantastic Four. People on both sides were arguing. Defenders said he was speaking truth to power. Critics said he was making it all about himself. But what came next took the chaos to another level, because people started wondering if this was all part of something bigger. The internet lit up like wildfire. At first, it was just trending hashtags. A few viral tweets, maybe some TikToks stitching Pedro's interviews with shocked reactions. But within hours, it turned into something way bigger. Reddit threads exploded. YouTube reaction videos dropped by the minute. And the comment sections? Brutal. Some fans said they were done, that they showed up for Fantastic Four, not a TED Talk. Others accused Pedro of playing the victim and using the role to push his personal agenda. Then there were the subtweets, calling him insufferable, tone-deaf, performative. Words like grandstanding and emotional manipulation started getting thrown around. And then came the memes. People started editing his emotional interviews, cutting together crying clips, overlaying dramatic music, and turning his speeches into parody content. It wasn't just Marvel fans anymore. Political accounts jumped in, influencers, even right-leaning commentators who rarely touch entertainment stories started posting about him. It felt targeted, coordinated, and nonstop. But just as the backlash was hitting its peak, something strange started happening. Because while some were dragging Pedro through the mud, others began defending him with equal intensity.
Fantastic Four flops. It wasn't good. Hypothetically, how does Marvel move on from that? I know Spider-Man is now coming out before Avengers Doomsday, and people are saying that that's going to be kind of like their safety net, but I really don't think that's going to work.
A whole wave of creators called out what they saw as a smear campaign. They pointed out how every single clip was taken out of context, how headlines were twisted, and how similar things had happened to other actors like Rachel Zegler. It was no longer just about Pedro. It became a culture war. Empathy versus outrage. Vulnerability versus professionalism. One side screaming that he's ruining the movie. The other saying he's being punished for being human. And caught in the middle? Marvel. Again. Because while fans were choosing sides, Disney was watching the narrative spiral out of control. And just as people started asking whether this backlash was organic or manufactured, the smear campaign theory went viral. Here's where things really took a twist. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about Pedro Pascal making emotional comments or crying on camera. People online started noticing patterns, weird patterns. The same clips being pushed over and over, the same out-of-context quotes popping up in dozens of low-follower accounts, headlines that sounded oddly copy-pasted. And then, multiple users across X and Reddit started pointing out what looked like coordinated amplification. It wasn't just backlash. It was a narrative being pushed. Some of the accounts spreading the outrage, newly created. Others had a history of posting about politics, not movies. And most of them had never once tweeted about Fantastic Four, until Pedro Pascal said something about Trump. That's when things blew up. And just like that, the smear campaign theory was born. One post in particular gained serious traction. It broke down the timeline of events, how Pedro's emotional speech dropped on a Friday, and by Saturday morning, over 50 different reaction videos had already been posted with identical thumbnails, many using the words meltdown, embarrassing, or woke disaster. Then came the Vanessa Kirby angle. Clips began resurfacing of Pedro getting too touchy with his co-star during interviews. Edits were made to suggest discomfort, when in reality, Kirby herself had praised him multiple times in that same interview for being warm and respectful. But those parts were cropped out. The narrative was being shaped. Was it personal? Was it political? Or was it just the internet doing what it always does? Some fans weren't convinced. They compared it to what happened with Rachel Zegler during the Snow White promo cycle. Same formula. Emotional actor, political commentary, wave of hate, and suddenly the movie is overshadowed by press tour drama. Only this time, the target wasn't a rising star. It was Pedro Pascal, one of Hollywood's most bankable names. And Marvel, still silent, no official statement, no damage control, just awkward smiles and group photos. And empty chairs at press events. Because now, even the cast was starting to back away.
It's already known that Fantastic Four is going to be like such an important and detrimental part to the Doomsday and Secret War story. So if their introduction, for some whatever reason, doesn't land with the audience, I don't get how they can make Doomsday like, you know, the success it needs to be.
Behind the scenes, things were starting to crack. At first, Marvel's response to the Pedro Pascal controversy was silence. No tweets, no statements, no corrections. Just a quiet hope that the noise would die down on its own. But that didn't happen. The longer they waited, the louder the backlash got, and the more awkward the press tour became. And then the absences started. Vanessa Kirby, who plays Sue Storm, suddenly dropped out of a major scheduled interview. No explanation, no reschedule, just gone. The next day, Joseph Quinn and Eben Moss-Bachrach missed a radio spot. Again, with no public reason. Fans began to notice. People started asking, why is Pedro Pascal the only one doing press right now? Sources close to the production began leaking details. According to industry insiders, Marvel's PR team was in full-blown damage control mode. Talking points were being rewritten. Cast members were being instructed to stay completely off politics. Interviews were trimmed down. And any questions about smear campaigns or Pedro's emotional speeches immediately shut down. One insider even told an entertainment blog that Disney had held quiet internal meetings to assess the situation, and that studio heads were frustrated that something meant to revive the brand was turning into a reputational headache. And yet, Pedro kept talking. Even as his co-stars pulled back, even as Marvel tried to pivot focus, he stayed in front of the cameras, still emotional, still political, still raw. And that created a new kind of pressure for everyone around him. Suddenly, the rest of the cast was being pulled into something they never signed up for. They were promoting a superhero movie, not a culture war. And now, Marvel's big comeback film was beginning to feel more like a ticking time bomb. But just when it seemed like the storm might finally settle, something new resurfaced. Something that made people wonder if all of this should have been expected from the start. Here's the part nobody really expected, at least not at first. Because for a while, it felt like this was all new. Like Pedro Pascal was suddenly going off script, breaking down on camera, getting caught in the heat of the moment. But then the internet did what it always does. It started digging. And what fans found? This wasn't the first time. Clips began resurfacing from previous press tours. The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, even smaller indie releases. Interviews where Pedro spoke about grief, trauma, politics, and personal loss.
By the way, I'm not trying to like prey on its downfall or anything. Like, I am genuinely super excited for the Fantastic Four. I'm just being real. Marvel has been doing flop after flop. Thunderbolts was a flop. Yes, it's like a literal fact. So in my opinion, it is reasonable to be concerned that this movie might not be good, or, you know, it just might not perform well. And if that happens, like, what's next? We'd like to welcome back Iron Man, Steve Rogers, Scarlett Johansson, because we can't make anything else work.
Moments where he cried, where he criticized certain politicians, where he used his platform to talk about social justice. It wasn't a one-time meltdown, it was a pattern. And that raised a very uncomfortable question. Why didn't Marvel see this coming? They cast Pedro Pascal, an actor known for his emotional range both on and off screen, and expected a clean-cut, brand-safe Mr. Fantastic promo tour? Come on, that's not what they signed up for. Or maybe it is what they signed up for. They just didn't realize how quickly the internet would turn it against them. The same traits that made Pedro beloved, his warmth, his passion, his outspokenness, are now the very things causing tension. It's a personality that works for Joel in The Last of Us. But Reed Richards? The brilliant, calculated, emotionally detached leader of the Fantastic Four? Yeah, it's not landing the same. And now, the very presence of Pedro in this role is being questioned, not just by fans, but by some people inside the industry. Whispers of miscasting are popping up in critic circles. Rumors that some Marvel execs wish they'd gone a different route, someone safer, someone who could just play the role and move on. Because with Pedro Pascal, there is no off switch, no script, no silence. He shows up as his full self, tears, trauma, truth, and all. And what's coming next might be the most unpredictable chapter yet. You could feel the shift coming. For years, fans have been debating whether Marvel's focus on inclusion and identity politics, what the internet casually brands wokeness, has helped the brand or hurt it. And with Fantastic Four, first steps, that conversation just exploded again. Because Pedro Pascal's press tour wasn't happening in a vacuum. It followed a long string of Marvel projects where storylines were eclipsed by social messaging. Ironheart, Echo, The Marvels, She-Hulk, all of them positioned as representation first. And while that should have been celebrated, it quickly became clear audiences weren't connecting. The shows were dropping in viewership. The box office numbers were shrinking. The merchandise wasn't selling. And now, even after a $250 million opening weekend, Fantastic Four is already showing signs of second-week fatigue. Meanwhile, Marvel's leadership isn't budging. Just 2 weeks ago, Kevin Feige doubled down. He said DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is still the future of the franchise. He called it a pillar of storytelling. And Bob Iger? Same stance. Despite growing online pushback, Disney's not backing off the message. But the fans? Some of them are. They're tired of politics and promos, tired of every interview turning into a culture war.
So I went to the Fantastic Four event in Berlin today. And excuse me if I look like crap because I feel like crap. I've been on the go since 7 a.m. and I'm pissed because that shit was not a fan event.
Tired of being told that criticism equals intolerance. They want the old Marvel back, the one that put story first. And now, Pedro Pascal has become the face of that fatigue. Not because he intended to, not because he did anything objectively wrong, but because his raw honesty, paired with Marvel's already shaky foundation, created a perfect storm. So now, everyone's asking the same thing. Is this the breaking point? Has woke Marvel reached the end of its runway? Or are we just watching growing pains in real time? Either way, the backlash is louder than ever, and Marvel still hasn't figured out how to silence it. You'd think after all the headlines, all the backlash, and all the awkward silences, Pedro Pascal would dial it back. But nope, not even close. According to multiple entertainment sources, Pedro is planning another big interview next week. This time, a sit-down meant to clear the air. But if his past appearances are any clue, this isn't going to be some tightly managed scripted apology. Insiders say he plans to speak from the heart again, which at this point usually means more tears, more politics, and a whole new set of viral moments. And Disney? They're sweating. Insiders claim that Marvel's upper brass is getting pressure from higher up at Disney. Executives are holding closed-door meetings about how to contain the fallout before it sinks what was supposed to be their biggest Phase 6 reset. One source reportedly said, "This wasn't part of the plan. We wanted headlines for the movie, not a meltdown." Even Pedro's co-stars are reacting with silence. Not just skipping interviews, but outright ghosting press events. Interviews have been canceled last minute. Scheduled roundtables are being trimmed down or quietly restructured to leave Pedro out. It's full-on damage control mode. Meanwhile, fans who just wanted a superhero movie are tuning out altogether. They're calling this press tour a political campaign disguised as a promo circuit. They're saying it doesn't feel like Fantastic Four anymore. It feels like the Pedro show, and the irony, it's working for all the wrong reasons. Because even people who weren't planning to watch the movie are now curious. Not about the plot or the action, but about what Pedro Pascal will say next. It's no longer about stretching powers or cosmic threats. It's about what comes out of Pedro's mouth during the next interview, and how much more chaos it might cause. At this point, Fantastic Four isn't just a movie. It's a PR case study. What should have been Marvel's triumphant reset is now buried beneath Pedro Pascal's tears, politics, and a press tour gone completely off the rails. The film's core message? Forgotten. The cast? Scattered. And the audience? split. So here's the real question. Is Pedro Pascal the victim of a toxic smear campaign or the architect of his own implosion? Either way, Marvel's biggest reboot in years is now riding shotgun to a drama they never saw coming, and it's only getting messier from here.